At the beginning of the story, we see a boy named Steve. Steve loved going inside the mine, but because he was small, no one allowed him to enter. Many years passed, and after a long wait, he finally grew up and went into the mine. To fulfill his childhood dream, he started digging there, and during the excavation, he discovered an earth crystal and an orb. When Steve fit the earth crystal into the orb, a portal opened. Steve stepped inside the portal and discovered a new world, a world completely different from the ordinary one. Everything here was square-shaped, as if someone had created a dream or fantasy realm. This world was called Overworld. Its uniqueness was that whatever you imagined here became reality. For a creative mind like Steve, it was a paradise. He decided to stay here. He found a wild dog in Overworld and tamed it as his pet. Many years passed and their friendship grew deep. Steve created many things here for himself. One day, while working, he saw another portal, one he accidentally opened and entered. This time, he arrived in another dimension of Overworld called Netherland. This world had no creativity, no happiness. It was like a kind of hell. When Steve reached there, the queen of that world captured him and took the earth crystal and orb from him. Actually, this queen had wanted these two objects for many years, so she could destroy Overworld, because Overworld had never accepted her. Learning the queen's plan scared Steve. He realized that if Overworld was to be saved, only he could do it. At night, using cunning, he freed himself, stole the crystal and orb, and, risking his life, placed the crystal in a bag. He told his dog, "Take this bag to Earth and hide it in my house." Following Steve's instructions, the dog first traveled from Netherland to Overworld, then to Earth, hiding the orb under the bed in Steve's house. Years passed. We are then shown a man named Garrett. He owned a video game store, but hardly anyone came. Because of this, he faced financial trouble and received an eviction notice, putting him in deep trouble. To save the store, he decided to buy a container with his remaining money and sell its contents to earn money. Inside the container, he found an old game called Cosmos, once very famous. He thought if he could set up this game in his gaming zone, business might revive. Hopeful, he bought the container, but fate tricked him again. Inside were only old, useless items. However, among those items, he found an orb and an earth crystal, actually Steve's belongings. But Garrett didn't know the true purpose of these objects. Later, while driving home, his car engine suddenly broke down. Frustrated, he got out and started yelling. Meanwhile, we see a boy named Henry and his sister. Henry was very intelligent and, like Steve, had a wonderfully strange imaginary world. He used to draw whatever he imagined in his drawing notebook. It's shown Henry recently moved near Garrett. Before school one morning, he visited Garrett's gaming zone and liked the things there, but he was in a hurry, so he went to school. At school, the art teacher asked them to do a live drawing. A banana and an orange were placed in front of them to draw. Henry was drawing, but added a jetpack behind the banana with his imagination. The teacher got angry, and the other students started laughing at him. Henry, frustrated, decided to make the jetpack real. After much hard work, he built one and attached it to a skeleton to test at school. Everyone gathered to watch, but a child cut its wire. The jetpack went out of control and hit workers at a chips factory. Henry felt humiliated, and the principal called his parents. Knowing his sister would be scolded, Henry called Garrett, who had become his friend. Henry said, "If you come as my uncle, I'll pay you $2,000. Hearing the amount, Garrett agreed. After school, Garrett brought Henry back to the store. Henry saw his jetpack was intact but didn't understand why it hadn't worked. Disappointed, he threw his diary in the trash. Then his eyes fell on the orb and crystal. He inserted the earth crystal into the orb, and suddenly, a strong pull brought him to the mine entrance where Steve had gone into Overworld. Garrett followed him. Meanwhile, Henry's sister grew worried because Henry was missing. She called the real estate agent, who had helped them buy their home. They tracked and reached the mine. Suddenly, the portal reopened, pulling Henry, Garrett, Henry's sister, and the agent woman into Overworld. Meanwhile, someone from Overworld noticed the back portal was open and entered. The queen from Netherland also learned that the orb and crystal had returned to Overworld. She told Steve, "If you bring me the orb and crystal, I will spare your life." Steve was pleased. The agent woman got scared and told everyone to go back. Then night fell, and many skeleton monsters attacked. Henry thought, if only there was a wall here. And suddenly, a wall appeared. He realized, in this world, whatever you imagine becomes real. He built a room around them, allowing them to survive. Meanwhile, Garrett was still outside. Henry's orb and crystal had been left outside. When Garrett went to get them, he was attacked by an arrow. The crystal broke, leaving only the orb in his hand. To save his life, he ran into the fortress room, but many zombies followed and climbed inside. When everyone's lives were at risk, Steve came to their rescue. Using his experience, he fought the monsters, and by snapping his fingers, the sun rose, burning all the zombies to ashes. Steve revealed he had been in Overworld for many years. Seeing the crystal was broken, he got very angry, because without the crystal, the portal to Earth couldn't be opened, and they could be trapped here forever. Everyone got worried. Steve said there was a way. Inside the woodland mansion lay the last Earth crystal, but reaching there wouldn't be easy. Everyone agreed, and Steve said he needed the orb in exchange. They agreed. Steve took them to his armory, where various weapons were stored. There, Garrett saw a strange crystal, and Steve warned, "Don't touch it. Wherever you throw it, you will teleport there immediately." But Garrett didn't listen, and threw it behind, instantly teleporting himself backwards. He had slowly started to believe Steve's words. Here, Steve was teaching them how to make things on their own. Henry quickly grasped everything Steve said and managed to build a pressure gun so impressive that even Steve was left amazed. Garrett, who had never been good at this sort of thing, also ended up creating some strange inventions. Steve asked Garrett, "What are you doing?" Garrett replied, "Honestly, I'm not interested in making any of this. I'm only interested in the treasure hidden inside the mine, the one where the overworld portal opened." Garrett said to Steve, "If you take me to that treasure, I'll personally hand over the orb to you." As they were still talking, monsters from the netherworld launched an attack. The queen of this place wanted the earth crystal and the orb. Everyone began fighting to save themselves, and during the chaos, Henry's sister and another girl got separated from the group. Steve led Henry and Garrett to a high ground and handed them iron wings that would allow them to fly. Pointing to a mountain ahead, he said, "Behind that mountain lies a woodland mansion where the earth crystal is kept. You must retrieve it." To test the wings, Garrett pushed Henry off the ledge, but the wings didn't open. Just before hitting the ground, the magic in the wings activated, and Henry soared upward. Seeing this, Garrett jumped too. Steve hadn't intended to jump, but when the Queen's soldiers attacked him from behind, he had no choice but to leap onto Garrett. Before they could reach the mountain, the wings stopped working, and they crash-landed. Garrett asked Steve, "Who were those soldiers who attacked us?" Steve replied, "They are the Queen's soldiers from the Netherworld. She wants to destroy the Overworld. Years ago, her own people laughed at her dancing, and since then, she has held a grudge. She began hating talented people, and now wants to eliminate all creators and destroy the Overworld." Steve added, "You're wondering why I want the orb. I need it to save my dog. If the Queen gets the orb, she'll kill my dog and imprison me forever." Just then, we see Steve's dog, heartbroken by Steve's absence. It's nighttime. Henry's sister and her friends are alone. The dog appears before them, and they recognize it as Steve's by the collar around its neck. They all want to reunite with their friends. The dog sniffs their scent and starts leading them towards Steve. Meanwhile, Steve and Garrett reach the mine where the treasure was hidden, but before they can retrieve anything, word gets out, and the guards start destroying the mine. Their lives are now in danger. Steve quickly gets everyone into a cart and rushes them out of the mine, which collapses behind them. Henry, furious, yells at Garrett, "Because of your greed, our lives were at risk." Garrett snaps back, "My life isn't as easy as yours. I'm broke. I need money. Doing this is a necessity for me." Steve understands his pain and says, "I've been through the same." Then, they arrive at the woodland mansion. Before going in, Steve gives some instructions. On the first floor are assassins who attack with axes and let no one survive. The second floor is patrolled by some sorcerers. The earth crystal is on the third floor, guarded by Endermen. Their eyes are mysterious. You must not look them in the eye. Henry and Garrett come up with a plan. Garrett goes in first and starts singing to distract the assassins. Meanwhile, Henry silently climbs to the second floor. Though a few assassins spot him, he sprints past them and reaches the third floor, without being seen by the sorcerers, while Garrett and Steve continue fighting below to keep enemies distracted. Henry finds the earth crystal, but an Enderman appears behind him. Henry accidentally makes eye contact and starts hallucinating. He hears voices, calling him a loser, but he regains control and defeats the Enderman with his axe. When the Enderman falls, it drops a crystal with teleportation powers. Henry picks it up, heads back down, and rejoins Steve and Garrett. As they exit the mansion, the Netherworld Queen appears with her army. They steal the earth crystal and the orb from the trio and set off a massive bomb to stop them from fighting back. The explosion sends Garrett falling, and Henry and Steve lose consciousness. When they wake up, Steve's dog has found them and brings them back home, but Garrett is no longer with them. Meanwhile, the Queen places the orb and the Earth crystal into the portal, unleashing a laser that begins spreading darkness over the overworld. Now, she aims to rule over it all. Seeing this, Steve is heartbroken and begins planning a final battle to fix everything. They forge new weapons and head to war. With their mini-bombs and weapons, they start destroying the Queen's forces, one by one. The Queen, furious, sends her largest monster to attack. After defeating it, Steve takes on the Queen himself. Meanwhile, Henry realizes that if he removes the Earth crystal from the portal, the destruction will stop. He installs the teleporting crystal into his pressure gun and fires it near the crystal, teleporting himself to it. Just as he is about to grab it, a soldier throws a bomb beside him. Henry falls and is about to die, but Garrett arrives in an air balloon and saves him. It turns out, Garrett didn't die. He survived, thanks to the air balloon. Together, Henry and Garrett destroy the portal's walls. The portal collapses, ending all negative energy in the overworld. Light returns, and all Netherworld soldiers turn into zombies. Even the Queen loses her powers. As a last attempt, she tries to kill Steve, but fails. This is how Steve and his team win the war. Everyone prepares to return to Earth. Steve decides to stay behind in the overworld and gifts his dog to the others. But then, Henry's sister says, "Why don't you spread your magic to our world too?" Hearing that, Steve changes his mind and returns. Together, they open a new gaming zone for Steve. Henry and Garrett launch a new game, which becomes a hit in just a few days. Garrett's problems are solved, and Steve becomes Garrett's store partner, performing live there. Now, Henry flies to school, wearing a jetpack, and all the kids are amazed by him. And that is how the movie ends.